Oh, Beth, it's been fun even before this recording. We've been just catching up a little bit and thinking aloud together of like, oh, what's the theme that wants to emerge here together? And quite naturally, it's been what we were talking about last time, coming back here for more in-depth exploration. And that's like this power we have as creators. Like we are always creating, whether we know it or not. And so to be more conscious and aware that we are creators and we can actually change the circumstances of our lives, whether it's things around us or inside of us, like we have significant influence. So I would love to just pick up on that for today and see, just what thoughts you might have around this whole topic of like the power to change.
And that's something that I'm kind of getting, information on, is that a lot of people, they create by default. Whose fault is it? Is it my fault? Is it the other person's fault? And that creation by default is actually um, uh, an unhelpful paradigm, but one has to do it enough to get to a place where they recognize that it's not helpful. So does it really help? I read one of the many books. One of the guys was on a flight and he was getting divorced from his partner, and the man that was sitting next to him on the flight said, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? And the man that was getting the divorce said, what, I'd rather be happy. So he ended up changing how he was thinking about going into the divorce, about fighting for everything. And I thought that was a really powerful question. Would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? And I think if you think about your life in those terms of what will create happiness for me, and if I'm happy, then the other people around me have the opportunity to be happy because I'm modeling that behavior. So creating a situation where you begin to empower yourself with your own thinking about how can I choose differently? How can I make different choices about how I'm thinking about a subject, or I'm thinking about a problem that's going on in my life, so that it's empowering to me rather than disempowering. And that's sometimes a really tough thing to do when you're in pain or you're hurting or there's some really negative stuff going on in your life. It's not easy to go to that place of going, okay, how can I choose from a place of empowerment versus disempowerment? Because we're kind of taught by, the paradigm from a lot of people that if we can make ourselves a big enough victim, or if we can make ourselves hurt enough, somebody is going to step in and fix it for us. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen often. It it generally has to come from within us, believing something more powerful about ourselves, that it becomes um, it becomes a a fire in your belly kind of thing, to say, hey, I'm valuable and I'm worthwhile in the world, and I'm not going to allow this treatment to continue to go on. Women that have been in abusive relationships, or men that have been in abusive, it's not I've seen both sides. As long as you're willing to accept someone treating you in a way that is not supportive of you being all that you can be in the world, then that in itself, that decision is is how things continue to go on. And a lot of times people don't even realize they've made that decision. We make all kinds of decisions about things when we're younger, that we don't even recognize that we made, and we just keep playing these same scenarios over and over and over again until we get into such a state of discomfort that we, at first it's that fight or flight thing that comes up in us, and everybody responds differently to that. And then what you choose to do with it. And there's so many tools and techniques. We were talking about tools last time. There's so many tools and techniques that people can offer to others, but one has to be willing to pick up the tool and actually use it, rather than staying in a place You know, if you're digging a hole for yourself, eventually you get to a place where you're going to need a ladder to get out of it. You can't climb out of it on your own. And so, you know, it does require someone else giving you that, because you can't get a ladder if you're in a deep hole, right? So that's, and it may seem like nonsense, but if you slow yourself down in a place where you're, you know, you're really thinking repeated thoughts over and over and over, and it's like that's your whole, that it becomes your whole world. Trying to get out of it at that point, it really does require someone else, and that's what we're here in this reality frame, bumping into each other so that we can have the opportunities to, which I think is fascinating.
Right, right. It is just like that paradoxical beauty of like, oh, like if we're waiting to be rescued, probably not going to happen. And if we're in need, then that gives someone an opportunity to help us, and then we get to help others that are in need. And there's like this positive flip of like, victim or blaming and waiting to be rescued, or trying to rescue everyone, or all the ways that, fear is like driving interacting with others, versus this like beautiful other positive side where if everyone's self-responsible, then I can help, and I don't feel attached to outcome or something, or I can ask for help, and it's with gratitude, and not like someone rescue me or something. And it's like there's all these ways in which we actually have the opportunity to support and get support in
Mhm.
a really positive way.
It's funny, and when you're talking about that, someone rescue me, I think of the, you know, the Disney stories where kids watch, you know, when they're little, that, you know, the princess is going to be rescued by the prince, and it sets up this idea in your mind that, you know, you're not able or capable, and that's not true at all. If you have and this also is to the creative force. If you have an idea of something that can be changed, that it's actually within your paradigm to help to create that change. You're not powerless. You know, that 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 you know, that change is available because it's within your thought process. So just take the first step. It doesn't have, you know, you don't change the world by waking up one morning and going, I'm going to change the world, and it suddenly happens. You change the world by one thing after another, after another, after another, continual improvement, continual change. And I look at the world we live in now. I think, you know, 100 years ago, so much of what we do for each other wasn't even available, right? There's people that, I mean, I watch these things on social media where, you know, somebody will go in and pay for groceries for somebody else in a line, and it's like, oh my goodness, right? The woman I watched, you know, she's in tears. I didn't have enough to pay, and so thank you so much, you know. And it made a huge difference for her. And when we care for each other, and I mean, I've been the recipient and the purveyor of things like that, where, you know, you drive through and you get a coffee and you pay for the guy behind you. Here's an extra 20 bucks, whatever, the guy behind you. And I've been the recipient of that. And it's like, when you drive through, I mean, whoever did it, it's like you could be having a really bad day, and the person that does that, and it's such a simple thing to care for someone else, but it's a gift to both the giver and the receiver, right? When you care for someone else, you get something out of that.
Yeah, and isn't
And
that
I'm
beautiful? Like,
not talking about giving until you're broke. I mean, that you got to care for yourself first, right? You got to look after your own needs, because you don't create a viable society by making yourself so broken and so disempowered that you can't help anybody else either. So that's not the point I'm trying to make. The point is, if it's available to you and, you know, you have it, then why not give yourself the gift of being that purveyor of goodness into the world? Um, I, I, I marvel at the drivers. I'm in Calgary visiting my daughter, and I marvel at the drivers. I am sorry about that. I am used to a small town where, you know, three people at the stoplight, the one stoplight in town, that's a traffic jam. Whereas here, there's over 1 million people in this city, and everybody is wanting to, get home as quick as they can, and they're done their day, and yet if there was just the slightest bit of courtesy for everyone, everybody's trip home would be better. And yet so many people are obviously not thinking of that. It was really mucky and dirty yesterday driving, and people cut in front of you and they splash your windshield, and it's almost dangerous, right? Whereas if they waited 3 seconds further to get in front of you, that wouldn't happen. But it seems that a lot of people are very focused on themselves and what they want and need, and not looking at what might be better for all involved. And that's sort of sad, because we could create so much better for ourselves if we just chose to.
And not that this is our intention, but this is the beauty of it. Like if I do, like you were saying, like true compassion, true giving is one that is also like doesn't harm ourselves or and is sustainable. But if we're giving that true kind of sustainable, harmless compassion, to others, like we are blessed as we're giving. It
Yeah.
feels good for us. So that's not the intention, but everyone's getting fed in that situation, so to speak. It's like, like it goes out, but it also goes in simultaneously. And like, wow, like there's an incentive, like in almost an ironic way, like, hey, like if you really want to make it about you, like become love, become like this genuinely compassionate person. You'll be so happy. You'll get so much out of it if you give like that. And that the
And
sort of irony of it all.
it really is, isn't it? Because it was like a really funny, thought about it. But there's this thing that I'd read a long time ago. The version of hell was everybody was at this pot of stew. I'm sure people have read that, where everybody's got this long spoon strapped to their arm, and if they put it in the stew, they can't. There's no way for them to bend and feed themselves. And that's hell. Everybody's trying to feed themselves. And heaven is everybody's got their spoon and they're feeding the person across the table, right? It's the same beginning paradigm, but how we deal with it is so different. And I thought that was kind of, I mean, I know it's simplistic, and, a lot of times people get upset with the overly simplified version of things, but it's not wrong.
Oh, absolutely. There's a deep truth there. Absolutely, right? Like, the scenario where it's like, in everyone giving, everyone's fed. In everyone giving, everyone's fed. And that is heaven, right? Like, all needs are met. All like care is expressed, and all holes are patched, so to speak. And it's like, I don't have to like scrounge and scrape and try to get me and mine, and even that energy. Like I think if we really pay attention, and the more we become mindful of our inner experience, through meditation and just having a self-reflective life, like even just like trying to get in that graspy energy, it's like, it's just kind of icky and doesn't feel like it's quite right. But to like take what we need gently and then receive, and like to receive and to give, like there's such a reciprocity of like what a world that would be for sure. Live that
Yeah,
way.
it would, and it's going to take time to change it, because not everybody is self-aware to that point yet. But I'm seeing so many more people that are, right
Mhm.
there. There's so much more consciousness about, hey, how is what I'm doing today, or how is what I am being in the world affecting others, right? And so I think the more we start to think from that place of, yes, I love, what is going on in our world, and how can it get to be better. When they first came out with home computers in, the 80s, it was like, you had that little card where you put it into the thing, and you had, what was it, 4 gigs was like, whoa, or 4 megabytes or whatever it was. Like that was a massively big computer, and now it's like terabytes, right? So everything is a progression. But when you think about, and I'm sure people watching this are going, what's she talking about, the 80s? I wasn't even alive then. But, you know,
Oh, what we take for granted, younger people for sure.
Yeah.
And like it's such a important point because I know on my phone, I have different social media apps, and I was making a reflection on my life. I'm like, I need to look at my diet, not only food, but like what am I taking in? And so on my social media apps, I just started unfollowing certain things and like where are the channels and the people where they're doing exactly what you're talking about. Like they're doing kindness and compassion and love. And come
Mhm.
to find out, those kinds of channels and people are everywhere because it's something people like. It's like it's not like they're, oh, here's the negative channels and they have millions of followers, and here's the nice channels and they have a couple hundred. It's like people are like,
Yeah.
hey, I like that. I'll follow that. I want to take that in. And there's something in a positive way, self-reinforcing about positivity. We put that out into the world and it like sparks it in other people. They're like, oh, like maybe I can pay for the next drink for someone sometime. Like we start having this uh, positive contagion. It's like, we're gonna flip the pandemic on its head. Like, what if we start actually, spreading something beautiful and like positively contagious?
Yeah, and being loving to others is actually being loving to yourself, because you can't do something nice for somebody else and feel terrible about who you are in the world. It's not possible, I don't think. I mean, maybe somebody can prove me wrong, but it's like when you're doing something that's kind and loving for others, it does feel good. And it's like, how do you get yourself out of a dark or bleary day? Well, look around for somebody to help. And that in itself might, whether you're doing the act of compassion or kindness or witnessing it, it's like the rising tide lifts all boats, right? How do you be part of that rising tide? And that's the question, I think, for self-empowerment. And how do you be disempowered? Well, blame everybody else for your lot in life, make it somebody else's fault, and that's disempowering.
Yeah, yeah, because if that's the
Which,
truth, what can you do about it? But
yeah,
on the flip side, it's like, oh, if it's me, I can do something.
if it's within my power to do something about it, no matter how small or how much of a beginning it can be, then why wouldn't I make that choice?
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. And it's I haven't thought about this in a while, but something Beth, but our listeners may not, is I went to school for clinical social work and learning to become a therapist, and so I learned all kinds of techniques and good approaches that, well, I won't go into for now, but there was one that had a great research base for helping people get really unstuck from like really challenging patterns. It was quite impressive outcomes, and part of their protocol is like helping others, and they name this explicitly. It's like, okay, you do your tools over here to feel better and work on yourself over here, and then they come to the next part of the protocol and it says, and if you focus on yourself and never anyone else, you're going to not get to a certain level. You have to take your attention off of you, put it on someone else in need, and that's actually a way for us to continue further our healing. Like it
Yeah,
wasn't the only strategy. It's like, we gotta, take care of ourselves in different ways and, be taught that if we haven't. And an important part of the journey is like helping others. That's literally like in a clinical protocol with research base. It's like, I love that when I saw that. I'm like, oh, right. Something most of us intuitively knew, but to just see it like, validated like that and in social science circles is really cool.
that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, because I'm so glad that it's starting to get into, the clinical, and it's amazing that that's happening. So, and that's change, right? That's change coming through the whole system, right? So it's pretty amazing what's happening in our world if we just think about how powerful each individual can be by making conscious choices.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And as we're coming to sort of a natural conclusion on this theme today, I'm thinking about the people who might be listening who would say, oh, what do I have to offer? Like maybe this is a very new sort of area of exploration for them, and maybe a part of them is like, maybe Beth and Nathan are on something, and I can just practice and try a small way to help someone else in some small way, and then another part of me goes, oh, what do I have to offer? I don't have anything valuable, I'm not special, and all the ways that we do this self-talky thing that shuts the game down before the game even started. So like, how would you speak to that kind of person that's like, oh, maybe they're kind of inching up on that, but they're like, oh, me, little old me, like, how would you speak to that person?
What 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 is your choice of, if you don't risk and change even a small thing to open the door to something bigger, then your choice is to stay exactly where you are. And that that's a choice. And it's yours to make. So you get to decide. You get to decide what choice you'd like to make, whether you want to risk opening the door, or do you want to just stay in your comfort area and not give yourself the opportunity to perhaps have something remarkable happen? Because that's how you let miracles in the door, is by giving it a chance. And they do happen.
Yeah, yeah, they do. And I just so appreciate it, and I'm enjoying just listening to your encouragement and invitation to folks, because it's like, oh, like you have something to give. Like, it's a risk. It feels that way, but if you took that risk, like, you have something to give, and miracles could happen, and like, what changes could unfold with just something small, like, I love how you're saying that earlier in the conversation, like, just small ways, doesn't have to be changing the world, like, just make a little smile, come up for someone in some small way. Yeah.
Yeah. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one's first step, right? It's that's part of, the sayings that roll around, and it's not wrong. It's you do, and if it doesn't matter where you end up, what do you need a map for, right? You want a map, you want to have a plan, so because usually it does matter to you where you're going, right? If I want to get to New York, I don't get a map of California. I get a map of the United States. If I live in California, I have to figure out how to get from there to where I'd like to be. And, yes, you've got to start with your local map. How do you get out of your local area? I was surprised. We were in California. We'd taken the kids to Disneyland, and we were staying in a motel that was kind of away from the park. And one of the ladies that we were walking with the kids, and she was out, and we just kind of said hi, and she had never left the 6 square blocks of her neighborhood. So she was thrilled, to meet people where we were from Canada, right? And for her, that worked. It's not a criticism, like, but there would be people that would be going, oh, that wouldn't work for them. And so that's what you got to look at, is what's working for you and what doesn't feel like it's working for you, and use what's working for you to be the jumping off point to change what's not working, and try and get some success in those areas. And as you start to get success in the areas that are not working, it starts to give you the encouragement and the courage to even begin more changes and shifts, right? So it becomes a snowball rolling down a great big hill versus, trying to push it up a very steep hill.
Right, right. Oh, wow, well said, well said. I just had images going in my mind of the movie The Hobbit, the trilogy before the classic Lord of the Rings. And it starts with Bilbo as a younger man before he went on all of his adventures. And Bilbo, he's just this classic hobbit, like hobbits do. He's like, I have my routine, we never leave the Shire, like, I have tea time at 11, and like, everything's structured and predictable. And then he has all of these like rowdy dwarves come into his house, and they're talking of adventure and like, what's possible if you step outside your door. And the he rejects it right away. It's a bit too much to take in that moment, but it plants a seed. Then he grabs his bag, and then all his neighbors are like, "Where are you going?" As he's running. He's like, "I'm going on an adventure." And that's the beginning of this amazing story that unfolded all because of this risk to do something a little different. And wow, it's a dramatized story that's really fun, and there's something mythic in that. There's something that's an invitation for all of us, like, in what ways can we step outside our door in a new way? And it can be small. Small is the best way to start, and where things can unfold from there. So thank you, Beth, for just reminding all me and really all of us of that invitation, because life can be like that, to really see and explore and go. And it's not without its challenges. We get the support when we need it, and you're one of those folks that offers support to folks who need it. And when people start feeling that traction beneath their feet, it really does become something of an exploration. So thank you for reminding us of that.
Well, thank you for encouraging me to be able to do that. So I really, really appreciate our conversations, and I'm really hopeful people will appreciate them too. And if they have questions that they'd like to hear us talk about, I'm sure hoping that they'll send them in to you. So yeah.
Oh, it's such a great idea and worth reiterating here. Like, as folks are listening to these chats, Beth and I would love to hear, like, what would be interesting to chat about next. What do you want to hear about? So send either of us a message. You can reach out to me as just to make it easy, and we'll chat about those things and see again where the exploration goes with something new. So yeah,
All
thank you,
right.
Beth, for this.
Well, thank you so much, Nathan, and I look forward to seeing what we chat about next week.
Me too. Me too.
All
They're
right.
always so enjoyable. Thank you. And yeah, ciao everyone. Thank you again for joining us.